The morning was unusually bright, and the sun peeked through the curtains, spilling a warm glow across the marble floors of the large house. The CEO, known for his wealth and sharp business mind, moved through his home with his usual precision. Every step seemed calculated, every glance purposeful. He had a meeting to attend, one that could shape the future of his company, and time was never on his side. He checked his watch, straightened his tie, and walked past the living room where the maid was busy tidying up. She barely looked up, focusing on her work, her movements smooth and practiced. The maid's daughter, a curious and observant child, sat near the window, her small hands resting on the sill. She had grown up seeing the CEO come and go, always busy, always in a hurry. She noticed things others didn't. Today, something felt different to her. She could sense it even before she understood what it was. The way the car was parked, the way the driver moved. There was a subtle unease in the air, one that only a child with keen eyes could catch. The CEO walked into the hall where the car awaited. It was sleek, black, and polished to perfection, reflecting the sunlight like a mirror. He barely noticed the maid's daughter as he approached. He was focused on the day ahead, on the important meeting, on the people who waited for him. He opened the door, ready to step inside, when a small, urgent voice called out, "Don't get in the car." The CEO froze. He turned slightly, expecting maybe a neighbor or someone who had come to visit. But no, it was the maid's daughter, her eyes wide and serious, her small hands reaching out as if to physically stop him. Her voice was strong and clear, commanding attention despite her size and age. The maid, still nearby, looked up in surprise but didn't move. She trusted her daughter's instincts more than anyone, even if she didn't fully understand what was happening. The CEO blinked, a mix of confusion and annoyance crossing his face. He was used to people following instructions, to assistants who anticipated his every move, to guards who stood like statues ready to protect him. A child shouting at him in such a manner was unexpected, almost absurd. Yet, there was something in her tone that made him pause, a certainty that went beyond childish imagination. He leaned slightly toward her, curiosity mingling with caution. "What is it?" he asked, his voice calm but firm, trying to maintain control of the situation. He had been in many meetings, faced countless challenges, but this was different. He was faced with something unpredictable, something human and raw. The child took a small step forward, pointing toward the driver of the car. "The man, he isn't right. You shouldn't get in," she said, her words simple but weighted with meaning. There was no hesitation, no exaggeration, just a clear message of warning. She looked at him with eyes that seemed older than her years, eyes that had seen things in a way adults often overlooked. The CEO felt a chill run down his spine. Something about the urgency, the focus, the unwavering conviction made him reconsider. He had always believed in preparation, in analysis, in logic. But here was a moment that no logic could fully explain. He stepped back slightly, closing the car door slowly, his instincts finally catching up to the child's warning. The driver shifted, sensing the hesitation, but the CEO didn't move. He looked at the maid's daughter, studying her face, trying to understand the fear and the insight behind it. She didn't back down. She didn't falter. She simply waited, expecting him to trust her, to see what she saw. The maid, sensing the tension, moved closer to her daughter but kept her voice low, not wanting to interfere. She had always taught her child to observe, to notice the small things, the details that often went unseen. And today, those lessons were proving invaluable. She watched as the CEO's eyes scanned the car, the driver, the surroundings, and finally settled back on the child. There was a flicker of respect, a recognition that sometimes courage and wisdom were not measured by age or status. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The street was quiet, the usual morning sounds muffled, as if even the city knew something important was unfolding. The CEO's mind raced, thinking through possibilities, trying to assess the situation. He was trained to handle threats, to navigate risks, to make decisions under pressure. Yet this was different. This was not a business problem. This was a human problem, one that demanded trust, intuition, and the willingness to act against expectation. The child, noticing his hesitation, stepped even closer. Her voice, though small, carried authority. "Please don't get in the car. You don't know what he will do." There was no exaggeration, no dramatics, just a clear and urgent truth. The CEO's jaw tightened. He could see the honesty in her eyes, the clarity in her warning. It was rare, almost unheard of, for someone so young to convey such insight without fear or doubt. He realized that this child had seen something adults had missed, something critical. Finally, he nodded slowly. He closed the car door completely, turning his full attention to the maid's daughter. "All right?" he said, his tone softer now, a mixture of relief and admiration. "Tell me exactly what you saw." The child took a deep breath and began to explain, pointing out the details that seemed insignificant to most adults. The way the driver's eyes moved, the slight tremor in his hand, the unusual way he positioned himself in the seat. Every observation was precise, accurate, and alarming. The CEO listened carefully, noting how her small frame and innocent appearance contrasted sharply with the gravity of her message. He realized that her words carried more weight than any report he had received from his assistants or security team. As she spoke, he began to understand the magnitude of what she had just prevented. The meeting, the schedule, the business concerns, all of it faded in importance compared to the clarity and courage displayed by this young girl. He felt a mix of awe and gratitude. This child, small and often overlooked, had just saved him from a danger he hadn't even considered. He looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as the maid's daughter, not as a child, but as someone remarkable. The street outside seemed to breathe again, the tension slowly dissipating. The driver sat in silence, unaware of the shift in power, the recognition of the truth. The maid's daughter stood tall, her eyes never leaving the CEO, as if silently asserting her role in this small yet significant moment. The CEO knew that this was more than a warning. It was a lesson, one that he would remember for the rest of his life. He bent down slightly, meeting her gaze directly. "You were right," he said, his voice sincere. "I don't know what I would have done without you." There was no condescension, no patronizing tone, just genuine respect. The child nodded, her expression calm but proud, knowing she had done the right thing. The maid watched quietly, proud of her daughter, understanding that this moment would change not just the day, but perhaps the life of the CEO. As he stepped back from the car, the CEO realized that wealth and power could not protect him in every situation. Sometimes it was the smallest, most unexpected people who held the greatest influence. Today, it was a child who had reminded him of something fundamental. Attention, courage, and honesty could be more powerful than any security system or strategy. The morning sun continued to shine, but now it seemed brighter, reflecting not just off the marble floors, but off the clarity of a lesson learned in the most human way possible. The air outside felt different now, charged with tension that only a few could sense. The CEO stood a few feet from the car, still processing the child's warning. He took a deep breath, trying to focus, but his mind kept replaying her words, her expression, the way she had pointed at the driver with such certainty. He realized that instinct, not logic, had just prevented a potential disaster. He glanced at the maid, who was standing silently nearby, her hands folded, watching her daughter with pride and quiet confidence. She knew her child had a rare sense of awareness, and today it had proven to be more valuable than any training or experience the CEO had. The child, still alert and calm, didn't move from her position near the car. She had a sense that the situation was far from over. Her instincts told her that the moment the CEO stepped back, the threat might try something else. She wanted to make sure he was safe, and she could feel the responsibility resting on her small shoulders. Despite her age, there was an unspoken strength in her posture, a sense of purpose that commanded attention without the need for words. The CEO, realizing he needed more information, crouched slightly to speak to her at eye level. "Tell me exactly what made you so certain," he said. His voice was steady, yet tinged with curiosity. The child spoke with clarity, explaining how the driver's actions seemed off, how how the slight hesitation in his movements and the unusual way he positioned himself indicated something was wrong. She described details so precise that even the CEO, who had seen countless professionals, found it hard to ignore. Every point she made painted a picture of caution, and he couldn't help but feel grateful for her sharp observation. The driver, sensing the shift in control, glanced nervously at the CEO. There was a slight tension in the air now, almost invisible but palpable. The CEO's eyes narrowed as he scanned the surroundings, noting every small detail that the child had mentioned. Something inside him clicked. He realized that the usual sense of security he relied on, the uniformed guards, the high walls, the polished cars, was useless if he ignored the warnings right in front of him. He took another step back from the car and gestured for the driver to stay where he was. "Wait," he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. The child nodded, feeling a surge of relief that her words were taken seriously. The maid moved slightly closer to ensure her daughter was safe, but she didn't interrupt. She had trained her child to trust her instincts and speak up when necessary. Today, those lessons had been heard, and that trust had been rewarded. As they all stood there, a few neighbors began to notice the unusual scene. The sight of a child standing in front of a luxury car, holding her ground against a powerful man, drew quiet murmurs of curiosity. People often underestimate the insight of children, assuming innocence equals ignorance. But this child's courage and clarity challenged that assumption, showing that perception was not tied to age. The CEO watched the subtle reactions of the people around him, recognizing that even in a community accustomed to appearances, truth and awareness could not be hidden. He crouched down slightly again, closer to the child's level, and asked her to explain the sequence of events that led her to notice the danger. She spoke carefully, recalling the small, seemingly insignificant details that adults often miss. The way the driver adjusted his seat, the nervous glance at the rearview mirror, the hesitation in stepping toward the car, each observation painted a picture that seemed clear only to someone with fresh eyes and a keen sense of awareness. The CEO listened intently, realizing that experience and expertise could sometimes blind people to the obvious. As the explanation continued, a quiet understanding grew between the CEO and the child. It was a rare connection, forged in the heat of a potential crisis. He could see how she was not just observing but thinking critically, analyzing what she saw in a way that was precise yet natural. Her voice was steady, her confidence unwavering, and it made him realize the value of listening, truly listening, even when the source was unexpected. The driver shifted uneasily, sensing the tension and perhaps understanding, in some small way, that the situation had changed. The CEO kept his gaze fixed on the child, silently signaling to the driver that he had the upper hand. There was a subtle power in calm observation, a lesson he hadn't expected to learn from someone so young. The child's eyes never left him. She knew that any misstep could be dangerous, and she was determined to prevent it. The surrounding air seemed to hum with anticipation. Every passerby who glanced at the scene could feel that something extraordinary was unfolding, though they didn't yet understand what it was. The CEO, usually unshaken by meetings, negotiations, or boardroom conflicts, felt a different kind of intensity. A human intensity that came from fear, courage, and trust intersecting in a moment of truth. The child's presence reminded him that life often required awareness and respect beyond what could be measured in charts or reports. He finally nodded to her, signaling that he understood the seriousness of her warning. "You were right," he said quietly, almost to himself. He felt a strange mix of relief and admiration. Relief that the danger had been recognized in time, and admiration for the child who had spoken up without hesitation. He realized that courage did not require age, and awareness was sometimes sharper in innocence than in experience. The child's expression softened slightly, a small sign of relief that her warning had been acknowledged. She stepped back just a little, allowing the CEO space while maintaining her vigilance. The maid, seeing this, let out a small, quiet sigh of relief. She had always trusted her child's instincts, and now she knew that this trust had been justified in a way that would not soon be forgotten. The CEO looked at the driver once more, his mind racing through possibilities. He was trained to analyze threats, yet this situation had been entirely unexpected. He realized that even the most prepared individual could overlook small but critical details. The child's observations had illuminated what expertise alone could not, showing him that true awareness often required listening to voices that might otherwise be dismissed. In that moment, the CEO decided to act with caution. He instructed the driver to stay put while he moved back a few steps, giving him a better view of the surroundings. He glanced at the child, silently acknowledging her role in this unexpected turn of events. There was a subtle understanding between them, a recognition that she had just saved him from an unknown danger. The weight of that realization settled over him, making him feel both humbled and grateful. Time seemed to stretch as he considered the next steps. He could have dismissed the warning, trusted his usual security measures, and proceeded as planned. But the instinct, the truth in the child's voice, had altered his course. He understood now that respect for observation, no matter the source, could be the difference between safety and risk. He looked at her one last time, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. The child's courage had not only prevented harm, but had also given him a lesson that would linger far longer than the morning's events. The sun continued to climb higher, casting light on a scene that had shifted in ways invisible to most. The CEO knew that the meeting, the schedules, the demands of business, all of it could wait. The immediate concern was understanding and acknowledging the warning that had come from an unexpected, yet remarkably insightful source. He had learned that true human awareness and courage could manifest in the smallest forms, and today, that lesson had been delivered by the maid's daughter with clarity and bravery that would not soon be forgotten. The tension hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and the CEO could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Every instinct, every piece of training he had, told him to be cautious, but the clarity of the child's warning left no room for doubt. He had stepped back from the car, yet the danger was not entirely behind him. He needed to understand fully what had been lurking in the shadows of his routine and trust the observations of someone who saw the world differently. The maid's daughter remained alert, her small frame poised, ready to act if necessary. She had an unusual ability to notice details that adults overlooked. Today, that ability was proving crucial. She pointed again toward the driver, explaining with calm precision how his movements were inconsistent and why that suggested danger. She described the way his eyes darted quickly toward the side mirrors and how his hand had twitched at the wrong moments. Every word she spoke was accurate, grounded in observation rather than imagination. The CEO studied the driver carefully. Now that he paid closer attention, he could see what the child had described. There was an unnatural stiffness in the driver's posture and a hesitation that seemed too deliberate. He could feel the subtle shifts of tension in the car, the way the engine purred differently as if hiding something beneath its polished surface. The CEO realized that the child had detected the signs that his own experience had initially missed. He felt a deep sense of respect for her. This was a rare gift, the kind of perception that could save lives. He turned to the maid, nodding slightly as if acknowledging a silent understanding. She met his gaze and smiled faintly, her pride and relief visible without a word being spoken. She had always encouraged her daughter to observe, to think, and to speak up when something felt wrong. That encouragement had saved her employer today. The CEO couldn't help but marvel at how a small, often overlooked child could influence someone so powerful with nothing more than clear observation and courage. The child continued, pointing out small, specific details. He moved his hand when he thought no one was watching, she said. He tried to look casual, but it was wrong. I know he wants something bad to happen. The CEO's heart quickened. He had trained for emergencies, but there was something more visceral in her words. It was a warning not of numbers or strategies, but of human intent, raw and immediate. He realized that some dangers couldn't be measured in protocols or procedures. They had to be sensed. The driver, sensing that his plans were unraveling, fidgeted. There was a subtle shift in his posture, a glance that betrayed his nervousness. The CEO's sharp eyes caught it instantly. The child had been right all along. He realized that she had not only seen the danger but had understood its seriousness instinctively. He admired her for speaking up despite her size and age. Often, people hesitate, underestimate themselves, or fear speaking truth to power. This child had none of those hesitations. She had acted decisively when it mattered most. "Step back from the car," the CEO instructed firmly. His voice had regained the calm authority of a seasoned leader, but it carried a new layer of respect for the child who had guided him to this moment. The driver hesitated, unsure how to respond, but the CEO's firm presence left no doubt. He watched the child closely, noticing the way she maintained her focus and her determination. Her courage was quiet, controlled, and unwavering. People in the neighborhood had begun to notice. Some paused in their walks, curious about the unfolding scene. They could sense something unusual, a drama of human awareness and courage. The CEO realized that everyone around could learn something from this moment, even if they did not yet understand the full story. The child's bravery, her ability to perceive danger, and her willingness to act were extraordinary. The CEO silently made a note to ensure that this lesson would not be forgotten. He crouched slightly, speaking to the child in a voice that was both reassuring and respectful. "I need you to stay calm and continue watching. Tell me if anything else seems wrong." The child nodded, her expression serious but steady. She understood the responsibility she carried. Every movement, every glance mattered. She had not expected to influence someone so important, yet she had risen to the occasion naturally, guided by her instincts and the lessons taught by her mother. The maid observed quietly, knowing that her daughter had grown beyond ordinary caution. Today, her daughter had demonstrated not just awareness, but leadership in a moment of uncertainty. The CEO's demeanor had shifted subtly. He was no longer just a figure of authority, but a man learning humility and the importance of listening to voices that are often overlooked. The child pointed to a small detail, something that might have seemed trivial to most: the position of the rearview mirror. "He keeps checking it too much," she explained. "It's like he's worried someone is watching him. That's why I knew." The CEO's eyes widened slightly as he noticed the subtle signs. Every instinct in his body confirmed her warning. He realized how easy it could have been to ignore this if he had followed routine and assumed everything was normal. The child's insight had changed the course of the day. The tension between the CEO and the driver increased. The man seemed to sense that the power dynamics had shifted. He could no longer move freely or act with the casual authority he might have assumed. The CEO watched him closely, using every bit of training he had, but now paired with the intuition that the child's observations had unlocked. It was an unusual combination, blending experience and instinct in a way that made the situation safe yet controlled. The child, aware of every detail, remained alert. Her gaze never wavered, and her posture never faltered. She seemed to understand that any distraction could be dangerous, and she maintained her focus. The CEO felt a growing admiration for her ability to balance fear and determination with calmness and clarity. He realized that life sometimes provided lessons in the most unexpected forms, and today, this small child was teaching him one of the most important. Finally, he gestured to the driver to remain where he was while he stepped back to get a better perspective. The child nodded, sensing that this small adjustment could prevent a misstep. The CEO silently thanked her, realizing that courage combined with observation could surpass authority or experience in critical moments. The neighborhood returned to its normal rhythm, yet for the CEO, nothing would feel the same again. He had seen something he would not forget, learned something profound, and witnessed an act of human courage that had saved him from unknown consequences. The child had become a guide, a teacher in a moment that could have been dangerous. He understood now that vigilance and intuition were as important as experience, and sometimes even more so. The sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating the scene with a sense of clarity and resolution. The CEO looked at the child, realizing that her actions had changed his perspective forever. It was not just about avoiding danger. It was about respecting human insight, regardless of age or social standing. He knew that the day, which had started like any other, had transformed into a lesson he would carry with him always. The child finally relaxed slightly, seeing the CEO safe and aware. The maid exhaled quietly, pride shining in her eyes. The CEO remained thoughtful, absorbing the significance of what had just transpired. He had learned that courage could come from the most unexpected places, that awareness and instinct could surpass experience, and that sometimes the smallest voices carried the greatest warnings. Today had proven that, in the simplest and most human ways, life could teach lessons that no strategy, no planning, and no authority could replace. The tension in the street was palpable, and the CEO could feel every heartbeat as he assessed the situation. The child remained close, vigilant and alert, her eyes scanning the surroundings with precision. Every detail she had pointed out had proven valuable, and he trusted her instincts completely. The driver, noticing the shift in control, remained still, trying to appear calm but unable to hide his nervousness. The CEO realized that this was the moment to act carefully, to resolve the situation before it escalated. He turned slightly to the child, his expression serious but encouraging. "Stay with me and don't move. Just keep watching," he said. She nodded, her small frame steady and composed. He could see that she understood the gravity of the moment and the importance of her vigilance. The maid watched silently, pride and relief evident in her eyes. Her daughter had shown remarkable courage, and now she continued to provide guidance in this tense moment. The CEO took a deep breath and slowly moved a few steps back from the car, maintaining a safe distance. He observed the driver carefully, noting every micro-expression, every subtle movement. The driver's hands twitched slightly, betraying his nervousness, and the CEO recognized that the child had been right all along. Her observations had highlighted details he had overlooked, and those details were now guiding his actions. Realizing the situation required immediate attention, the CEO called his security team on his phone. His voice was calm and firm as he explained the circumstances, ensuring that backup would arrive without alarming the driver. The child continued to observe quietly, her presence providing reassurance and clarity. She pointed out additional subtle behaviors, like the way the driver's eyes shifted nervously and how he avoided making direct eye contact. Each observation helped the CEO make decisions that would keep everyone safe. The driver's unease grew, sensing that the CEO was no longer just a figure of authority, but someone fully aware and prepared. The CEO's posture and composure conveyed control, while the child's sharp observations added another layer of insight. Together, they created a presence that was difficult for anyone to challenge. Passers-by, noticing the unusual scene, slowed down to watch, sensing that something important was happening. As security began arriving in discreet vehicles, the CEO stayed alert, using every piece of information the child had provided. He watched the driver closely, ready to intervene if necessary. The child remained steadfast, pointing out minor yet significant movements that could indicate further intentions. Her awareness was unmatched, and the CEO relied on it completely, realizing that her courage had shifted the balance in his favor. The driver, realizing that his plan was being foiled, tried to maintain composure but failed to hide his growing anxiety. The CEO's eyes never left him, and every subtle action the driver took was analyzed with precision. The child's small voice provided continuous guidance, highlighting patterns that adults might miss. She noticed how the driver kept checking the surroundings and adjusted his body to appear casual, revealing that he was hiding something. The CEO appreciated her insight, knowing that her intuition and observation were critical. Security arrived quietly and efficiently, surrounding the car without causing panic. The CEO signaled to the child to stay calm and step back slightly, ensuring her safety while maintaining her ability to observe. The driver could now see that his control over the situation was lost, and his anxiety became more apparent. The CEO and the child worked together seamlessly, a combination of experience, instinct, and observation that was almost unstoppable. The CEO approached the driver calmly but firmly. "Step out of the car slowly," he instructed. The driver hesitated, weighing his options, but the CEO's unwavering gaze, combined with the child's vigilant presence, left him no room for defiance. Slowly, the driver complied, moving carefully, hands slightly raised to show he was not a threat. The CEO continued to observe, aware that even small mistakes could lead to complications. Once the driver was out of the car, security moved in to assess the situation further. They checked the vehicle for any hidden dangers, ensuring that no threat remained. The CEO thanked the child quietly, acknowledging her role in preventing potential harm. Her courage and observations had not only protected him but also ensured that the situation could be resolved safely. The maid stood nearby, beaming with pride at her daughter's bravery and intelligence. With the immediate danger removed, the CEO took a moment to reflect. He realized that his reliance on status, authority, and security measures had been incomplete without the human element of observation and courage. The child had provided insight that no training or experience could have replaced. Her instincts, clarity, and bravery had changed the outcome completely, and he felt a deep respect for her. The driver was escorted away by security, and the street gradually returned to normal. Passers-by resumed their routines, though some exchanged curious glances at the unusual scene they had witnessed. The CEO knelt slightly to speak to the child, his tone sincere and filled with gratitude. "You were amazing. You saw what no one else did, and you saved the day." The child smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and quiet pride. She had acted without fear, relying on what she knew was right. Her small actions had made a significant difference, and the CEO acknowledged that her presence and awareness had been invaluable. The maid watched silently, knowing that her daughter had demonstrated not just courage but wisdom beyond her years. The CEO stood and looked around, ensuring that everything was safe. He knew that the day could have ended differently if he had ignored the warning. He realized that true safety came not only from preparation but also from trusting the instincts and observations of those around him, regardless of age or status. The child had reminded him of something fundamental. Awareness, courage, and honesty were powerful tools that could prevent danger when used wisely. The sun was higher now, casting a warm glow on the scene. The CEO took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief and gratitude. He had learned a valuable lesson about trust, human observation, and courage. He knew that the child's actions would remain with him as a reminder of the importance of listening and paying attention. Today, she had proven that even the smallest voices could make a significant impact, and he would never underestimate that again. The street had returned to its normal rhythm, but the CEO remained deeply thoughtful. He looked at the child, whose eyes were still wide with awareness but now held a glimmer of pride and relief. She had done more than warn him. She had actively shaped the outcome of a potentially dangerous situation. He realized that the lessons from this morning would stay with him forever. It was not about wealth, power, or security measures alone. Today, the wisdom of a small, observant child had proven more effective than all of that combined. He walked closer to the child, bending slightly to meet her gaze. "I owe you more than words can express," he said softly, his tone sincere. There was no condescension, no patronizing, only genuine gratitude. The child simply nodded, her demeanor calm, as if she understood that recognition was not necessary for her actions. She had acted out of instinct and responsibility, and that had been enough. The maid stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You did exactly what you were taught," she said quietly. "You paid attention, you spoke the truth, and you stayed brave. That is what matters most." Her eyes shone with pride, knowing that her child had displayed courage and wisdom far beyond her years. The CEO observed the interaction, appreciating the quiet strength of the bond between mother and daughter. It was a reminder that guidance, nurturing, and trust could create extraordinary outcomes, even in the most unexpected situations. He glanced around at the street, now calm and normal once more. The threat had been averted, and security had handled the driver professionally. But the real hero was not the team or the systems he had relied on. It was the small, courageous child who had seen, understood, and acted when it mattered most. He reflected on how often adults dismiss the insights of children, assuming their innocence comes with ignorance. Today had proven the opposite. Awareness, bravery, and honesty could come from the most unexpected places. The CEO decided that this moment needed to be acknowledged in a meaningful way. He knelt slightly to the child's level, looking into her eyes. "Because of you, I am safe, and many things could have gone differently. I want to make sure your actions are remembered and honored," he said. The child's eyes widened slightly at the seriousness of his words, understanding that the recognition was sincere. Her courage had not only prevented danger, but had also left a lasting impression on someone she had seen only as a figure of authority until today. The child smiled faintly, a soft yet confident expression that reflected relief and pride. She had done what she knew was right, and the acknowledgement from the CEO confirmed that she had made a significant difference. The maid, still standing nearby, felt a warmth in her chest, proud of the maturity, awareness, and bravery her daughter had displayed. She knew that this experience would shape her child's character in profound ways, reinforcing the value of courage and careful observation. The CEO stood and addressed his security team, explaining how the child's observations had guided his decisions and prevented a serious incident. The team listened, visibly impressed and surprised by the clarity and bravery shown by someone so young. The CEO emphasized that while training and procedures were important, human awareness, intuition, and courage could not be ignored. He highlighted the lesson that true vigilance often comes from unexpected sources, and that respect for insight, regardless of age or status, was essential. As the situation fully settled, the CEO turned once more to the child. "You have shown a remarkable ability to notice what others cannot and to act with courage. That is a rare and valuable gift," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. The child's eyes reflected a mix of humility and understanding. She had acted without expectation, but the acknowledgement of her actions reinforced the importance of trusting her instincts and standing by her observations. Street returned to a sense of ordinary calm, with passers-by resuming their routines. Yet, for the CEO, the events of the morning had transformed his perspective. He realized that wealth, authority, and meticulous planning, while powerful, could not replace the human qualities of awareness, courage, and honesty. The child had reminded him of something essential: the value of listening, observing, and respecting insight, no matter who provides it. He took a moment to reflect on how easily this situation could have gone unnoticed if he had ignored the small voice urging caution. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest warnings. The child had noticed what adults, with all their experience, had missed. Her clarity, courage, and quick thinking had prevented harm, and the CEO would carry this lesson with him always. He understood that life often tests people in unexpected ways, and the ability to recognize and respond to these tests could be life-saving. The CEO invited the child and her mother to join him briefly, wanting to show appreciation beyond words. He spoke of the importance of human observation, the courage to act, and the value of standing up when something feels wrong. He encouraged them to continue nurturing awareness, trust instincts, and never underestimate the impact of speaking truth and acting with bravery. The child listened intently, absorbing every word, her actions already having proven her understanding of responsibility. As the day progressed, the CEO continued with his schedule, but the experience lingered in his mind. Meetings, appointments, and business matters seemed less significant compared to the human lesson he had learned that morning. He had witnessed a rare demonstration of awareness and courage that could not be taught in any boardroom or through any training manual. It was real, human, and unforgettable. He looked back at the child one last time before leaving, silently acknowledging the gift of her insight and bravery. Her small actions had had a massive impact, not only preventing danger but also reshaping his understanding of human value. He realized that every person, regardless of age or social standing, could contribute in meaningful ways if given the opportunity and respect. The child had proven that courage and observation could outweigh experience and authority in critical moments. The maid watched her daughter with pride, knowing that the events of the morning would stay with her forever. Her daughter had acted decisively, relied on her instincts, and remained calm under pressure. Today had been a defining moment, one that highlighted the importance of human awareness, intuition, and courage. The CEO had acknowledged it, but the real lesson belonged to them. The power of observing, trusting oneself, and acting when necessary. As the CEO finally drove away, the street returned to its normal pace, yet the morning's events would not be forgotten by those involved. The child had shown that courage and insight could change outcomes, that small voices could have tremendous power, and that careful observation could prevent harm when it mattered most. The CEO knew that he had been fortunate to witness such bravery firsthand, and he carried the memory as both a lesson and a reminder of the extraordinary potential in ordinary people. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow on the scene, highlighting the significance of the human connection that had made all the difference. Today had been more than an incident. It had been a profound demonstration of courage, awareness, and trust. The child had proven that even the youngest and seemingly smallest among us could make a tremendous difference when they acted with clarity, honesty, and bravery. The CEO understood that the world was full of lessons, and sometimes the most important ones come from the most unexpected places.